surface affected. So that might be okay as a very short-term option, or something you might do on multiple occasions, but as a one-off renovation, it's really not going to assist you. So if we use the 12mm times or 12mm times as our benchmark, at a 25mm by 25mm spacing, we can get out 20% of the surface area affected. And again, as we push the spacing out, we can see the reduction in the percent of the area affected. Right, so again, golf course superintendents that have got high expectations put on them in terms of the condition of the golf course and how it's going to perform, and also the disruption of doing renovations, need to take it into account what's going on. So if it's more convenient and less disruptive to go with a 6mm at a time, that's perfectly acceptable, but we probably need to do it at least 4 or 5 times over the course of a year to get the same effect. And that would be in addition to some dust improvement. If we look at scarifying, one of the things that I certainly found with the hybrid Bermuda grasses and also the new creeping bent grasses, what they don't like being scarified. If you scarify them, you tend to get a lot more surface disruption, but also they've got such high tiller density, their natural growth habit wants to be vertical. Their sideways growth can actually be quite poor. So it can take a long time after scarifying to get the surface recovered. But I think the important thing is understanding how much of the surface area is actually affected. Okay? So to affect, we'll say 20%, we need a 2mm wide blade at 9mm spacings. That's probably going to nearly tear the top off the putting surface, right? If we have that sort of scarifying treatment. It takes a lot of effort to get sand in to fill all those grooves, and often those grooves are only maybe 30 to 50 mm in depth. You've got to get the sand in. So the golf course superintendent in New Zealand, he did scarifying. He filled all the grooves with sand. He used blowers to blow the sand across, and then he top dressed again, blew the sand into the grooves, so he did an extraordinary amount of work to get the result that he wanted. Again, I would tend to promote hollow coring over scarifying as the preferred treatment for thatch and organic matter control. There's been some research done in terms of measuring the organic matter in the profile and trying to relate that to problems occurring. So there's been various bits of work done. Dr. Bob Caro, he promotes having less than 4% by weight of organic matter in the top 50 mm of the profile. Now, just for convenience, I tend to use that as a little bit of a benchmark. So if I'm doing some evaluation of putting greens, I would take a sample, you send it to the laboratory, and then they do what's called a loss on ignition. So they put it in a furnace at, I think it's about 600 degrees Celsius, and burn that organic matter off over about a 6 to 8 hour period. So it's a relatively simple test. Where I find it useful is actually to use it as a means of monitoring the thatch management programs over time. So the absolute number, whether you have 4% or 6% or whatever, is a little bit irrelevant, but it's understanding what are the changes over time. If that organic matter content is increasing over time, you need to readjust your organic matter control programs. I much prefer hollow coring because the core creates a hole that we can fill with sand. We can put sand down that hole, and invariably that's where we're going to get a fresh flush of roots taking place. It also keeps the holes open as well to fill them up with sand. But on top of that, dusting is also very much a key component of diluting thatch and keeping those core holes operational. As soon as the thatch seals over the top of the core hole, its effectiveness is reduced very, very quickly. Now, just use these. I'll just close this door. So that's the start as we do it, sorry.
We can see.
You see? Yeah. Okay, so we can see a history of hollow coring practices. So that's a nice little column of fresh sand there. But from a soil physics and a water movement in soils point of view, that is doing absolutely nothing. I have a very old movie that was done in the 1960s at a university in the United States. Its relationship with soils from an agricultural point of view, but they had some very good time-lapse imagery of what happens when water moves through a profile. And with a sand column like that, the water that moves through there, it won't actually go through the sand column, it'll go around the outside. So our sand columns need to be in contact with the surface. Right? So that's where we need to continue to renovate at least once a year, and following up with sand top dressing and dusting to keep that organic matter diluted and to allow us to get good water movement through the profile. So there's some pretty horrible profiles out of golf greens that aren't working very well, but you can see on this golf course they've done a renovation, which was good, but now we've got maybe 10 mm of organic matter across the top. So all that good work there has been undone by that organic matter accumulation on the surface again. So we must continue to be quite persistent in terms of our programs if we're going to control our organic matter. Sand dusting is really important. So if you've got brand new golf greens, if you can start sand dusting on a regular basis from the day that you've got 100% turf cover, you'll be able to minimise the size of tines you need to use at your annual renovation. The surface disruption will be a lot less, and you'll end up with a very, very high quality profile and very good root system. So there's lots of thoughts in terms of how much sand you should put on. These guys talk about 1.2 to 1.5 cubic metres per 100 square metres per year. One of my closest friends in the turf industry, he did his thesis on this subject, and he concluded you needed a minimum of 2 cubic metres of sand. Okay. And these guys here and talk about 3 cubic metres of sand. Now, the work that these guys did, they looked at a whole range of different cultivation treatments, solid spiking versus hollow coring versus just dusting. So it didn't matter what combination of treatments you had, if you were going to get a good result, you had to ultimately get about that quantity of sand. What's the right rate? I don't really know, but it's probably somewhere between 2 and 3 cubic metres of sand per 100 square metres per year. So that would be applied through your coring and top dressing program and your regular dusting programs. You can't start too early to control thatch and organic matter. So my good friend that did his master's thesis, I'll just point out a couple. That's a scarifying and top dressing program. And you can see there's a fairly dense layer of thatch and organic matter there. This is the regular dusting program, so you can see there's a good mix of sand with the organic matter through the profile. That's fairly consistent through the different replicates. But you can see the control, there's just this thick mat sitting on the surface, and that's where all the problems start. That's a hollow tine and top dress treatment. So that's typical of what you find in many golf greens that have got infrequent applications of sand. We get a layer, then we get a layer of sand, and then we've got a layer of organic matter underneath. In some respects, that starts to cause us more problems because water will enter that layer at a certain rate. As soon as it hits that layer there, it'll be interrupted. Okay, so there's a bit of soil physics involved there with water movement in soil. Water doesn't like hitting different layers. Just because that's a sandy layer doesn't mean that the water will go through it. It'll actually perch there until that layer is saturated, and then it'll move through. And then it'll perch at that second layer. So consistency and uniformity of profile is really important. So that's where our dusting treatments, and using that one as the best example, is what you're trying to achieve. So just a bit of summing up. Organic matter naturally accumulates, right? So that's just what grasses do. We're putting a lot of fertility and water there, so we're creating a very good growing environment. So they produce organic matter. So we need to keep it diluted. Right? We actually don't really get rid of a whole lot of organic matter. And it's interesting, a couple of golf courses where I've been doing some monitoring and benchmarking for 3 or 4 years, all their programs are keeping it at a constant level. They can never reduce it. Okay? So if you can imagine, if it gets away from you at some point in time, it'll be very, very hard without some very dramatic treatments to get it to reduce. Okay? Often we're actually maintaining. Oops. So diluting it with sand is the absolute key. How you do that, the combination of methods is up to you, the equipment you've got available, the staff, and the time frames and the golfing programs. But little and often sand dusting is probably the preferred method. So we've put through that reasonably quickly. Have we got time for some questions, Mr. Chairman?
Layer of patch.
Yes.
On the beams.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yes.
Although you mentioned 20 years. When we mold the beams at 2.5 mm, 4 mm, how do you reconcile? How do you measure?
So I measure the. I'm trying to think if I've got a photo right here somewhere. So the thatch layer, if we take that as the green point there, it's the organic material just below the green grass, the living grass, and this material a little deeper, which will often be a mixture of sand and organic matter. So it's very obvious that it's stems and roots and leaves that hasn't started to degrade down into just straight organic matter. So there's still some structure to it. I wish I had a better picture of it just to demonstrate it.
So you call the structure as patch?
Yes, so what's...
What we know is patch is the layer of dead grass, not the structure of the leaf of the grass.
Yeah.
Not dead.
It's dead and dying. Yeah. So it's sort of roots and stems that are broken off the plant. Yeah, so it's including all that material. And then that'll gradually degrade down. The problem with thatch is that it becomes highly lignified and it becomes very difficult to break it down even further. So that's why we're trying to dilute all the time with sand. Yes?
Sean, it's quite well known that microbial activity in the grass really helps to increase the porosity and also thereby, trichoderma or
been involved with some work with the Victorian Golf Course Superintendents Association for the last 2 years, trying to understand that relationship between soil microbial activity, the benefit of adding microbes as part of your maintenance program, and the impact on thatch and root growth. It's almost impossible to work out. If you read through the literature, it's about 50-50. About half the people say they got a good result, about the other half the people said, well, it was sort of insignificant. There's one very good paper that talks about if you have good soil aeration, good healthy root growth, good healthy plants, you will have a very healthy soil microbial population, which will be helping to degrade the organic matter. So if you've got a thick water thatch, poor roots, and the grasses are healthy, the microbial population that will be active in helping to break that down, they'll be less populous, there'll be fewer of them. We've certainly done work with adding trichoderma, bacillus, there's a whole range of soil microbes. My colleague, when he did his masters, used a product that was called Thatch X, which was supposedly a microbial product that broke down the thatch. Nothing ever sort of gives a consistent result. So what I suggest to superintendents that if they want it as part of their program, by all means do it. But there are physical treatments that give you a more instant result than relying too much on microbial activity. And so I'm a little bit sort of wishy-washy around that, but it's a very difficult area. Where it seems to have the best benefit is in brand new sand constructions. Maybe the addition of microbes or trying to stimulate additional microbial activity will have some benefit. But very, very quickly, turf systems develop their own microbial population. Yeah, well,
what's the relationship of water quality to thatch development?
There's a good one. There's our man with the sulphur burner.
That's right.
That's the man. I got into the turf industry through my interest in water quality. I did a lot of work with effluent water, very high bicarbonates, high sodium waters. There's no doubt if the soil pH is excessively high or excessively acid, a lot of those microbial activities will cease. So organic matter accumulation is almost invariably going to happen. If you've got excessive organic matter and you've got high sodium, high salinity,